Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank Porto Academy, Rodrigo and Amélia for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here. And it's been a pleasure to make part of the Porto Academy and to see all the lectures that have been going on. And I think that I learn as much as the students here. I think it's a continuous process for everybody. As architects, we continue to learn also. And it's been amazing for me, for example, to see Solano Benitez and the day after to see Angela Deuber, because they have just two different views of architecture. One comes from a tropical country and another from a Central European country. Their approaches to architecture are so diverse, and Solano would say that a project is not sufficient to make a work. You have to go to the work site, and with your hands you have to make what's missing in the project. And for example, Angela Deuber saying that she would like to have a drawing that would condense all the project information, and so different, but yet both so emotional and poetic. For that reason, I don't think I am able to define what architecture is, at least to me, because this continuous process of learning and wanting to learn more makes that what I think of architecture today will not be probably the same I will think in the future. So it's always changing. As I'm changing, my point of view in relation to architecture is also changing. And this reminds me a line from Oscar Wilde that says that coherence is the virtue of imbeciles. And so I probably will contradict myself maybe today or in the future, but that makes part of the process of continuous learning, and those who have curiosity for architecture will always continue with that process. I will show you today 5 projects of mine, and it will go from the most recent one to the old ones, and at the same time from the biggest one to the smaller ones. The first one I'm going to show you is it's not moving. The first one I'm going to show you is Real Vinícola Quarter, which is in Matosinhos, here close to Porto. Usually I don't show projects that are not concluded on sites, because I'm not really sure what the final result will be, so when I'm not so sure I try not to show them. But in this case, as the workshop theme is developed on this project, and this project involves a lot of Porto history, and you're our guests here in Porto, and I think you should know a little bit of the history which is related to this project. So I thought it would be a good idea to show this project. This is a painting from 1881 of Vieira of Porto, which is it's a World Heritage Site, and as you can see in the painting, you can see a lot of boats there, and these were commercial boats that would bring and take commercial products, and so this was the economic center of the city, in relating the city to other parts of the world. We have since that earlier than that time, we have the port wine that would come from the Douro, Here is another, this is a picture from around the same time from Emilio Biel, where you can see the Dom Luís Bridge being built. And you can also see the boats. So this was the harbor of the city at that time. And at this time, a lot of things were happening in Porto. This bridge was being built. You can also see the old bridge that linked Porto to Gaia was this bridge. And so they constructed this new bridge that would link Porto at a high level to Gaia, and it would have also a link at this level. The wine would come from the farms in the upper Douro, and they will come in these boats, these Rebelo boats. They will come down the river and they would unload in the cellars in Gaia side. So all the port wine cellars would be on the other side of the river. Here you can see another picture by Emilio Biel where people are, I don't know if they are unloading or loading the barrels, the wine barrels. So this Porto is on that side and this is Gaia side. The only problem was that the entrance of the river was sometimes pretty difficult to make because of the ocean, and sometimes the boats could not enter or get out of the river, so they would have to go protect themselves in this area over there, this is Lessa da Palmeira and Matosinhos and Lessa da Palmeira. And on this location in the ocean, there were some natural rocks which were called leixões, and these rocks made like a calm, keep a calm place for the boats to wait until the ocean would come down. But sometimes it would take so much, a long time, and for example, there were boats that would come out of the river, go to Brazil to deliver the products and come back, and some boats would still be waiting outside to get inside the river. So there was a plan to design a new harbor in Porto, and the harbor was meant to be located on this exact place where to profit from the natural rocks that already existed there. So they built the Leixões harbor at the end of the river Lessa, and they used this magnificent machine which is called the Titan. And so in 1894 they started building the harbor practically at the same time that the bridge was being built in the river. So a lot of things were happening at the moment in the city. This is the harbor already finished, and as soon as the harbor was finished, the harbor in the river started to lose importance, and everything would come to this new harbor. And there was this company who traded wine and exported wine to the Portuguese colonies in Brazil, India, and Angola and Mozambique, which was called Menes and Companhia, that were the first ones trading wine that would come to Matosinhos, closer to the new harbor, so they would be closer to the harbor, and it would be better for their business of export and import. This is an old drawing of the factory, of the storage where they stored the wine, where you can see that there was a small train that would link the factory to the harbor. So in this old plan, you can see this was the river Lessa, the new harbor. This is Lessa, this is Matosinhos. And so as they built the new harbor, they also planned an industrial space near the harbor so that factories could be closer to the ships. And so this one is the Real Vinícola. It was one of the first of being built on that new location. This is a picture of that time when it was built, and you could see that there is almost the streets were planned, but there was almost nothing over there. This is the original plan, where you can see that the train lines that would come in and go out. This would be storage and store. This would be where they would load the wine, and this is where they would unload the wine. So the train would come and unload the barrels, and then would go there. And to go out, they would load and come out. This here would be administration house. Over here was the storage of the barrels of wine. Over there was the storage of olive oil. Here was the place of the train. This was the mechanical space to maintenance of the train. Over here was where they built the barrels for the wine, and here it was a storage of the wood. This was a technical room with machines. This was where the people would have lunch, the canteen. And over here it was the carpentry and a wood storage also. Here we can see how this worked. This was one of the spaces in the middle where they would unload load the barrels of wine. And this was that long building where they stored the barrels. This is the upper floor. On the ground floor, the structure is a steel structure, because on the upper floor there's also a very heavy load because of the barrels. So on the ground floor they have a steel structure, and on the upper floor the roof is a wooden structure. This was the place where they would bottle the wine and put it in boxes, so to send it abroad. And this is where they would build the barrels for the wine. This is the workers. And at the beginning, the original project, there is this house and the main storage building. But this was built between 1897 and 1901. But in 1903, they made an expansion of this house and built another small building here that linked this house to the main storage building. This is a picture of the building at the moment. Here you can see that new building that they built around 1903 that linked one thing to the other. This is where the train is used to enter and get out and to load and unload the wine. On this side was where they would bottle the wine and put it in boxes. This is the lower floor with a steel structure, and this is the upper floor with a wooden structure. Our exercise here at the workshop is precisely on this space. This is a place where they would bottle in the wine and put it in boxes, and this is where they would make the barrels. So this new project has as an objective to revitalize the whole complex, all the buildings, and the intention is on these buildings over here. This is going to be the future House of Architecture in Porto. I don't know if you have already visited the actual House of Architecture in Porto in Matosinhos, which is a small house. This is where the Caesar's parents used to live, and Caesar also. And it's working there at this moment, but it's very small, and they need to have a new place for the House of Architecture to develop and get bigger. They also want to have this, to store all the projects from all other architects, and so there was a project designed by Caesar, but at the moment the city hall doesn't have the financial possibilities to make it, so they decided to make it here. On this building over here will be the installations headquarters of the Jazz Orchestra of Matosinhos. This is going to be a restaurant here, a space for different activities like fairs or stock markets or everything, or anything else. It's a more flexible space. This is technical rooms, and this whole building here, as well as this one, is going to be places to rent to privates. So this space will provide enough money to make this, to pay for the expenses of these ones, and so to make all the complex sustainable in economical terms. The House of Architecture, the entrance will be here with this foyer, where we will have a glass so we can see all the storage room that will take place in the lower floor. The spaces will be boxes to remind, like to link to the storage function that the building always had. This is an industrial building, and so all the spaces are going to be boxes that will be located so that the continuum spaces is not broken. The only thing new that is going to be visible here is these new staircases that were that we had to design because of fire requirements and security requirements. And the rest is going to stay more or less as it was regarding materials and everything. Little small changes are going to be on this building, which now has no roof. It has now 2 big trees, and we are going to leave the trees. So we're going to create 2 courtyards, one here and another one over there. And another difference is on this wall and on the other wall, we are going to create some new windows and new entrances for the future spaces that will be placed there. We didn't want to open doors to the outside, so we could keep the main entrance as the only access to the buildings, and to guarantee at the same time that this courtyard would be a public space with some dynamics. If we open doors to the road, the people would get in and get out, and there would not be many people around here. The jazz orchestra installations, the entrance is over here, and then this is this big room for rehearsal, and we'll work also as a studio and a small concert hall for some shows. On this side, in the House of Architecture, on this side there will be the store and the showroom. On the upper floor, we have here this small foyer, which is defined by these boxes, and on this side we will have the library. This will be the exhibition space. Here there will be these movable walls that will create temporary spaces for a conference or a specific exhibition that needs to be in smaller spaces. On the other side, there's the administration and working spaces. On the upper floor, there's the main room of the library and the working spaces of the administration. And here we can see these two new volumes of the stairs, and the space is left for the trees that will make the courtyards. These are the only images that I have of those two new volumes. And that's it. Now let's wait to see what happens. This next project is a football field in Custóias, Matosinhos. This is the old football field closer to the prison. There's a big prison over here, and the government built a new highway going this way. And so the football field, the old football field, had to be demolished. This is an aerial view from Google where we can see the new road. Here, these two spaces are for the gas station. And so the plot for the new football field was like this. It wasn't, the plot was so small for the football field that really I didn't have the chance to choose how to place the football field, because it would only fit like this. This was the only way to make it fit inside the plot. And one of the difficulties was that the site was not leveled. It was like, I don't, more or less 10 meters from here to here. So the question was how to place a big platform for football in a place where which is not leveled. So the idea was to place it at the middle, and so and profit from make the installations below and the stands above. So people could come from here, would have two entrances, one on the upper level and another one on the lower level. Another thing was many football fields here in Portugal, these small ones, they always make the stands above the installations for the players, and so we have this big volume, and the idea was to push this to the front and create an access for the people to enter on the upper level. The plan, this is the entrance at the lower level, this is for the players, this is for the public, and then they'll have this access to the upper level to the stands. So the public will come here and get to the stands. Otherwise, they will come from the upper level access and access directly to the stands. This is a general view of the stadium. This is the parking lot for the cars, the access on the upper level, and entrance to the stands, and the access from the lower level. This is the entrance from the lower level. This is a perforated metal sheet, and behind it there's windows, and this was in order to prevent broken glass, because when football, when there's always one team that loses, or maybe not, but when they lose, they usually like to express their anger and break everything. So this was to prevent broken glass. It's another view. This is the stand. Originally, the stand was to be uncovered, but in the middle, at the middle of the construction, suddenly they told me we had to cover the stand. So it was not very easy to find a way of covering it at the middle of the construction. But I think the final result is not so bad. So. Here you can see the upper level. This was used to make a garden around the fields. This is the access from the public to the stand on the higher level. They enter there and they come up from here. This is the toilets for the public. Another access. These are the facilities for the players. This one is for the invited team. The local team has these cabin lockers, but for the invited team, they told me just to put like this because they would break everything, so it wasn't worth it to spend much money with them. This is the first game with full house, and I think the local team won, so everything okay. This next project is 500 meters distance from the football field, is the Cristina Civic Center. It's in a public space with a triangular shape, a square with a triangular shape. And this is the empty plot. Over here is the house of the priest. And this is the Civic Center new building. I was experimenting a lot of forms and shapes and locations, and at the end, the shape of the building is only to fulfill the regulations implemented by the city. So this had to be the alignment, the new alignment of the houses would have to be this one. So the building follows this alignment. This is the maximum depth. So this was the depth of the building, and to leave an access on the side, we made the depth. We made the same depth and the same width, and it is a perfect square. The plans are also very simple. This is the entrance level with a reception. There's a corridor that divides on this floor the services, and this is like a room for the elder people, so almost like a library where they can spend some time and read the newspapers and some books. And here the access to the upper floor, where we have 2 meeting rooms and a multimedia room. At the moment, this is completely different. The functions are completely different, and the basement there's only storage rooms. This is one facade, and This is a line by Goethe that says, "Architecture is petrified music." This facade was not inspired by this phrase. It has nothing to do with it. Just at some point I was reading this and I remembered this project, and I looked at some partitures and some drawings by Beethoven, and I think I saw some similarities, but maybe it's just my imagination, but I liked it anyway. So, and because there was also Xenakis, who was an architect and a composer who worked with Le Corbusier, that said almost the opposite, that music is mobile architecture, and his music work also is like this. Is quite different from Beethoven's. It has nothing to do, but I don't know. I just thought I found some similarities, and I found it interesting. This is the building in the. So over here was a very plastic way of putting the windows. The element is always the same. According to the interior spaces, there was this need of bringing light to the inside and also to compose the facade, and the result came as this one. This is the side entrance in the plot. These windows are like this because we could not open any windows to the priest's house. They told us that we could not do it, so we opened the windows from one side and to the other side. This is the back facade. Now, the front facade, the windows are not. How do we say? The windows are a little bit back relating to the facade, because this is south, so we wanted to protect it a little bit from the sun. And on the other side, this is north. The windows are along with the facade, so we can have more light inside. This is the view from the side window above. It seems like it was designed to have this alignment, but this was pure luck. It's just like this, so we don't turn it to the priest house. And luckily, we found this alignment, which works really well. This is one meeting room. Another thing I didn't say is that this building, if you look at the facades, looks like a 4-story building, but actually it's just a 2-story building with double height. This has to do also with proportion and scale. The building didn't look right with other. If we translated only two stories to the facade, so it looked better like this, and we can explore lighting from the above, more diffuse lighting. This is another room to the north where the windows are on the outside. This is the corridor on the upper floor. And this, like Solano Benitez, this is Leonardo Finotti, the photographer. This is the floor on the ground floor. This is the room for the older people. This is the staircase. And there's also another thing, that on the outside, the building is in a gradients of grayscale, and on the inside is there's a color scale from light yellow to more strong yellow. And on the outside, the darker color comes from the ground and gets lighter as it goes up. and on the inside, it's the opposite thing, because we have more light on the upper floors, so the more strong color is on the upper floors, and the more light color is on the basements, where we don't have that much light to reflect it more. This is a painter that I like really very much, but this also has nothing to do with the project. It's something that, looking after, I think I saw this before, but I didn't make any connection between one thing or the other. But after, when looking at these paintings, they reminded me the colors in this building, and this looks like almost a sketch for the facade. This is another project. This is a house in the interior of Portugal, about 100 kilometers from here, in the north also. And this location was totally natural. It didn't have any human touch. Right now, at this moment, we can see this wind, like aeolic wind mills for aeolic energy, which are very sustainable in terms of energy, but visually are not sustainable at all, because this view is lost now. And so the main question was how to locate an artificial object in a space like that, in a natural space like that. And this also, this is from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if you remember or if you saw it, but this also was purely natural space, and suddenly this object, this element arrives, this rational and orthogonal element, not organic, and this element is sufficient to make all things change after this element arrives. And supposedly this element makes the click to the monkeys, and because of that they evolved to what we are today. So I was a little bit frightened of the consequences of a volume on the natural space, and I tried to, in the north of Portugal, as in Douro, as in a lot of places, on these agricultural spaces, they have these walls, stone walls that make platforms. And the idea here was to make another wall and let it in time be consumed by nature, by plants, and to cover it. So the roof this is a green roof, and the house is on this side, and on the opposite side there's a swimming pool. For the plans of the house, I went to research the local typologies and old typologies, and I found this one, which is in Guimarães, which is also in the north of Portugal, not so far away from there. And this is a farmer's house, and what I found interesting here is that they have this space, which is like a veranda, that links all the other spaces of the house. And one thing I wanted was to not to consume, and this is happens in all my projects, is I try not to consume a lot of space in circulation spaces, in corridors or anything else. So I try to expand the less area I can in circulation spaces to make it the places where people live, make them bigger as possible. So I translated that typology to the house here. We enter on the lower level. This is a garage and storage. And when we enter the house, we get to this hall. But then this veranda is what links all the spaces in the house. The living room, the kitchen with the dining room, which is also very typical in vernacular architecture. The people eat where they cook, and I think it's really nice choice, because you eat where the smells of the food are, and the atmosphere is quite special when we eat at the same place where we cook. These are like two similar modules with a common hall, a room, another room, and a bathroom. So, and they are away from this terrace, so people can circulate without losing their privacy. This is again the roof plan with the swimming pool on one side, and the house is in this side. By the time when I started designing this project, I was still working with Eduardo Soto de Moura, and I was terrified to design too much like him, because when you work in a place like Eduardo Soto de Moura's office, you get used to design like he designs, because it's his project. And so here, sometimes the idea was only to make it different from Soto de Moura. And I had some friends that said, you can make things just because they're different. Yes, but in this case, I want it to be different. It can't be the same. So even though the house, I think, has some connections with Soto de Moura's work, it reminds me a little bit of the house of Bom Jesus, that base, and then there's the other volume above. But for example, in this case, the windows would retract inside the wall, so you can open and have this completely open space, as well as in the corridor over there. You can see there, this veranda can be closed in the winter. It's like a winter garden, and in the summer it's all open, and it's an exterior space. Whoops. This is the relation of the house with the natural landscape. And this is a swimming pool on the other side. Here we can see the window mills because there's this fog. Here is the veranda. In the summer, the windows are hidden in the walls. This is the kitchen and the dining room. This is one of the rooms. This is the entrance from the lower floor. But it's quite ambiguous in some things, because here these are cloakrooms, and it is Soto de Moura could have designed those, but you can hear this door has nothing to do with the doors I was designing at that time with Soto de Moura. And Soto de Moura usually brings everything to the minimum and no frames, so I wanted to make a big and heavy frame. And another thing I wanted was the frame to go all around to the pavement, like this frame that had to be put in the wall so the wall wouldn't fall. This is the living room. This thing appeared because when I started designing, I hadn't finished my course yet, but when the house was built, I had already 2 children. So in the beginning, this would be an open space with nothing, but as the construction we would come to the end, and I had two small children walking around. I found that I need to have something here so they wouldn't fall down. So, but right now they are big enough, so we removed this. This is a line from Jean-Luc Godard. Reality is a bad directed movie. I don't know why I put it here, but I like the line. And this is a slideshow from the house, from dusk to dawn. Soundtrack by Radiohead. This is the last project. It's a grave I designed for a small boy who died. He was about 3 years old. And it was the only time I had a chance to design a grave. And it was quite difficult to design it, because it was it's always difficult to design a grave, I think, but this was someone I knew, and it was a small children. It wasn't an adult, which makes it even more difficult. And when thinking about the project, I thought of what usually people say to children. We always say to children that when they die, they go to heaven. They go, and we point up to the sky. But in fact, what we do is we bury people under the ground. So for any children, it's quite difficult to understand how he will go to heaven if we bury people under the ground. So I also knew this text from Sofia de Melo Brainer, which is a Portuguese poet, which I like very much, whose I think have written the best architecture texts I know. And on this phrase, when she says that the work of man is always a mirror where conscience recognizes itself, the mirror seemed to me would be a nice way of make an illusion. And the idea was, when we go to the graveyard and look to the floor, to the grave, instead of looking at the stone or to the floor, we could have the sky reflected in the grave. I was amazed again with Solano Benitez when he showed his father's grave. He also used the mirror, but not on the floor, but in walls. And he would say that the amazing thing for him was, when we look at the mirror, we are outside of ourselves. We see ourselves outside our own body. And on this case, the mirror was not for us to see ourselves, but to see the sky. And so when looking down, we would see the sky. And so in a symbolic way, the person who died is in the sky. This is a detailing. The idea was to have this metal frame with a mirror glass above, but at the end, the detailing was a normal grave with a stone, and above the stone, the metal frame with the glass. And it works the best way. The grave works really well when it's windy and cloudy, because we see a lot of movement, and it's quite impressive. I also have a small video for... and to finish a line from Fernando Pessoa, which I like very much. Thank you, everybody.